Greetings all, Ferrariman601 here. Welcome to live commentary coverage of the 2017 British Grand Prix coming to us from Silverstone. As always, with these live commentary streams, do be advised that I will not be streaming live video of the current session in progress. Therefore, I recommend that you position yourself strategically relative to my voice and your chosen medium of choice for your consumption of the visual content of today's proceedings. However, please do stick around so you can participate in the live chat as well as enjoy the commentary here. We have quite the British Grand Prix starting grid lined up for us. There have been several penalties applied so far due to mechanical changes, namely gearbox changes, most tellingly for Valtteri Bottas and Fernando Alonso. Fernando Alonso managed to set provisional pole time yesterday in Q1 in the closing seconds thereof as the track started to dry out. However, a 30-place grid penalty places him in P20 and last for the actual starting grid. However, Lewis Hamilton lines up on pole. He is one pole position away from equaling Michael Schumacher at this point. That is an absolutely ridiculous stat. I never thought that I would see a driver even come within a prayer of equaling Michael Schumacher's pole record, but there it is. In P2 is Kimi Räikkönen for Ferrari. P3, Sebastian Vettel in number 1 Ferrari. And P4 is Max Verstappen in the number 2 Red Bull. Daniel Ricciardo was hampered yesterday in qualifying by some sort of mechanical gremlin. Ricciardo will line up P19 today. P5 for Nico Hülkenberg in the first of the Renaults. P6 for Sergio Perez and P7 for Esteban Ocon. P8 for Stoffel van Dorn in the McLaren. Very nice Q3 appearance for the Belgian. P9 for Valtteri Bottas, suffering the effects of a 5-place penalty for a gearbox change. P10 rounding out the starters in the points anyway, Romain Grosjean in the Haas. P11 for Jolyon Palmer. I don't know how reputable this announcement was, but I did see from several sources last night that Jolyon Palmer is going to be released from Renault at the end of this Grand Prix, and he will be replaced by Carlos Sainz, who is in turn leaving Toro Rosso, and he will be replaced in time for the Hungarian Grand Prix. I don't know how reputable those reports are, but that's what I've been hearing. We'll watch for that storyline for today. P12 for Daniel Kvyat in the other Toro Rosso. P13 for Carlos Sainz in his last race for Toro Rosso, it might be. P14 for Felipe Massa in the Williams. P15 for Lance Stroll. Williams not doing so great this weekend. P16 for Kevin Magnussen in the second Haas. P17 for Pascal Wehrlein in the first of the Saubers. And in P18 is his teammate Marcus Ericsson. Daniel Ricciardo and Fernando Alonso bring up the rear in P19 and P20. We have about 11 minutes to go before the cars roll off on the formation lap. Just trying to have a look here at the weather conditions at Silverstone. So far, the track is dry. The winds are gusty as ever as the cars will be going around here. They will have a rather significant crosswind down the infield straight through the farm section heading into Woodcote, so that might unsettle the balance a little bit. That will be a headwind coming out of Stowe Corner and down into the Abbey Chicane area. However, that's about it in terms of the weather conditions. I don't really see the ambient temperatures at the moment, but rain, of course, is always possible at this time of year in the British Midlands, so we will be taking a very close look indeed at the weather conditions as the proceedings continue. Deadpool, hello, how are you doing? It would be very cool to see Kimi manage to pull a win out of the bag here today, but unfortunately I don't know if he's got it anymore. I really don't, and I say that as the biggest Kimi Räikkönen fan you'll ever find. He was on pole in Monaco, and he just could not convert it. Now, Ferrari's strategy certainly did kind of screw him, as we'll say here in the States. However, I don't know if he's got that ultimate pace. Last race in Austria, trying to hold off Valtteri Bottas, he couldn't do it. He made a mistake, and Bottas just sailed through. So I don't know if Kimi's got that ultimate pace anymore. Perhaps if he's feeling particularly inspired today, maybe we'll see something special. And who knows what could happen if the weather goes a little pear-shaped. Right now, the skies are cloudy, but the track is dry. I do imagine that the temperatures will be dropping a bit, both track temperatures and ambient temperatures, and we'll see if that does anything to the relative humidity levels. Deadpool, I'm just waking up over here. The green flag time at Silverstone for me is 8 a.m. on the east coast of the United States, so I woke up a little while ago. Seven minutes to go now before the start of the formation lap. Just watching the Red Bull mechanics here, putting the final touches on Daniel Ricciardo's car. Of course, Ricciardo starting P19. Everybody seems to be going for dry weather tires, and you would expect that considering the track is dry. But that sky does not look particularly inviting, let's say. It is cloudy, and I don't really see any breaks in that cloud deck. Adrian Newey looking on the preparation of Verstappen's car. He doesn't look particularly happy about anything. I wonder if there are problems lingering from whatever hampered Ricciardo's running yesterday. But yeah, the sky not looking so hot at the moment. Will we see rain during this race? I certainly hope so. Yeah, Deadpool, that cockpit setup seems really cool. And will the Hondas last? Well, Fernando probably used all the life in his engine, putting it on P1 in Q1, so I expect Fernando to retire on the formation lap, but then again, I always expect one of the McLarens to retire on the formation lap, so we'll see. We'll see. They both made it to the end. Well, no, they didn't both make it to the end last week. They both made it to the end in Azerbaijan. Last week in Austria, of course, Alonso retired with crash damage. Some offline radio transmission to Stoffel Van Dorn saying that there's no guarantee that the weather will remain stable for the duration of the race. (10 p.m. in Sydney, Australia. Yep, this is the sacrifice that we Formula One fans have to make because, well, this is a globe-trotting series, and if your location around the world doesn't change week to week, your time is going to change. So, 10 p.m. in Sydney, respect, massive respect to you there. Yeah, it looks like we've got one Brit here. Sorry, you've got an American and 2 Aussies at least. And for me, though, I have to say it is pretty cool. I'm talking to somebody in the UK, and I'm talking to 2 somebodies all the way in Australia. Australia is really, really far away from where I live. It is a 21-hour plane ride, to put that into perspective. So even going 600 miles an hour, it would take me 21 hours at the best of times to go to Australia. That's far. It's literally about 10,000 miles. Just about a minute and a half left before the start of the formation lap. McLaren radio to Stoffel Van Dorn there, just going through everybody's starting tire compound, starting on the super softs. P1 through P8, and that's Hamilton through Van Dorn. Bottas is on the softs. And then super softs resume from P10 to P13. Soft compound P14 to P18, and super softs at the back of the grid for Ricciardo and Alonso. I think those 2 guys are going to really want to capitalize early on, trying to pick off the back markers, the 2 Saubers and Kevin Magnussen. Yes, that was an absolutely ridiculous pole lap, 1:26.6 from Lewis Hamilton. That is roughly 2.5 seconds faster than last year's pole time. Or is it 1.5 seconds faster? I'm not sure. But that's the speed that these 2017 cars have. And remember, that track was still ever so slightly damp and definitely quite green when that time was set. So on a hot day with a rubbered-in circuit, could we see the 24s even from these cars? I do have to wonder. And we have sighted the orange Max Verstappen lion in the grandstands there. Meanwhile, the mechanics are just getting the tire blankets off of the cars now. The grid is being cleared. We are 1 minute away from the start of this formation lap. It's going to be a cool Grand Prix. I have a feeling about this race. I think we're going to see something spectacular here today. I don't know if it's because we've got Alonso at the back of the grid and maybe he can fight his way through. Also, Daniel Ricciardo back there. He definitely likes to overtake as well. Of course, both of the Ferraris right behind Lewis Hamilton on the grid. We know Sebastian Vettel has a way of making really good starts. Hamilton has the potential to screw up his starts. We'll see if we get a battle into turns 1, 2, and 3 here to start the lap. There are 52 laps in today's race. And do we have all cars away from the grid? Ricciardo pulled away, waiting to see if Alonso makes his way off of the grid. I believe he has done. So all cars are away now on the formation lap. Sebastian Vettel still leading the Drivers' Championship, 171 points to Lewis Hamilton's 151. Of course, that means that they are within the margin of a single race victory of being able to swap that position in the Drivers' Championship. We'll see what transpires today. Hamilton lines up P1, Vettel lines up P3. Will we see dramas into turn 1? Not long now before we find out. Mr. Teixeira, welcome. Thanks for watching that video. I decided to make it on a whim. I've got a lot of model cars, a lot of model Formula 1 cars as well, and I hadn't done one in about 4 years. It was the last time that I posted one of those scale model reviews. Those early videos were really bad, I just want to say. And the difference, aside from just being a few years more mature, the difference was with those first model car videos that I made, I wrote them. I wrote the script and I was just reading the copy. And with this one, I didn't write anything. It was just extempore, like I do my mod reviews, and I think it worked out a whole lot better. Those Exauto models really are spectacular, absolutely. They are very expensive. I've got 2 Exauto models, and let's see, the cheapest one was $200. So it's they are expensive. Then again, mini champs, they're running in about that price range now too. We have Julian Palmer going slowly down Hanger Straight. Julian Palmer, yes, this is going to be a retirement for Palmer. Could this be his last appearance in Formula 1? I think it very well could be. Palmer is pulling off the circuit on Hanger Straight. Meanwhile, the pole position man, Lewis Hamilton, is joining the starting grid now. Kimi Räikkönen and Sebastian Vettel in tow. Nico Rosberg looking on from the Mercedes garage, looking a little bit concerned. Hamilton has lined up in P1, Räikkönen in his slot for P2, and Vettel in P3. Palmer has pulled off the circuit. He is in the grass by one of the fire marshal posts off of Hanger Straight on the inside of the circuit just before the braking zone into Stowe Corner. They're going to have to recover this car. I think we're going to see an aborted start here. If cooler heads prevail, we will see an aborted start. Waiting to see any official word on that. Looking at Charlie Whiting here in the starter's booth. Will he throw the yellows and send the field off on a second formation lap here? Yes, indeed he has. We have an aborted start. That is to clear Julian Palmer's stricken Renault. Some sort of technical problem on that car. The race is technically underway. This aborted start does count as lap 1. The drivers will save a little bit of fuel, actually. They'll pick up some distance toward the flag without having to go full bean. So perhaps 1 extra lap of fuel on board the cars now. Lewis Hamilton has really taken off on this second formation lap. It's going a lot faster than the last one did. Hamilton probably concerned now about tire temperatures, making sure that everything stays up to temperature and pressure. He's going through Copse Corner now, heading into the Maggots and Beckett's complex. There's Billy Monger sitting there in the Mercedes garage. He was invited to this race by Lewis Hamilton. Billy Monger making an absolutely tremendous recovery from his horrifying injuries he suffered back in April in a Formula 4 race in which he lost both of his legs. There was a huge crowdfunding effort to help pay for some of his expenditures for all of the recuperation and therapies that he will need, now having to adapt to a new way of life. However, Billy Monger here at the British Grand Prix, special guest of Lewis Hamilton, absolutely great to see him here. On board with Daniel Ricciardo, working those front tires really hard into Stowe Corner, getting some heat in them and getting some heat in those brakes as well. And Lewis Hamilton now coming back onto the starting grid. Maybe we'll get underway this time. The drivers start their burnout procedure coming onto the grid, making sure those rear tires are right where they need to be in terms of temperature. And the first 2 rows have formed up on the grid. There was a bit of smoke coming out of Sebastian Vettel's car. I'm not sure if he just locked a wheel up coming onto the grid or if there was something more, but one of the Ferraris a bit smoky. We'll see that. Yes, one of the Ferraris is indeed smoking. I think it's the rear brakes on Sebastian Vettel's car. just a bit too hot. These carbon brakes, of course, they need to have air going across them at all times. Lights are coming up now. 3 lights, 4 lights, 5. Pause. And the lights are out, and away we go. Bit of a sluggish getaway from Lewis Hamilton from P1. However, he fends off Kimi Räikkönen into turn 1. Kimi Räikkönen did seem to get a pretty good start. There is Max Verstappen challenging Sebastian Vettel for P3. However, Verstappen backs off into turn 2. The two Ferraris getting very close through turn 2, and Lewis Hamilton already putting a gap on Kimi Räikkönen. Max Verstappen trying to go around the outside of Sebastian Vettel into turn 3, and he does it. Verstappen now ahead of Sebastian Vettel as they head down the infield straight for the first time. Lewis Hamilton, despite a somewhat slow getaway, has already put about a half a second gap on the field. The order: Hamilton, Räikkönen, Verstappen, Vettel, Ocon, Hülkenberg, Bottas, Perez, Van Dorn, and Grosjean. Your top 10. Through Woodcut Corner, it is Hamilton leading, followed by Räikkönen and Verstappen. Vettel does not have an answer for the Red Bull man at the moment. Through Copse Corner for the first time. Vettel very close up to the gearbox of Max Verstappen through Copse Corner. Will he be able to pull a move going into the Maggots and Beggets complex? Certainly not. Indeed, he does not. We have a yellow flag in Sector 2. There is dust in the back. Yellow now extended to Sector 3 as well. Nico Hülkenberg making a move on Esteban Ocon. Was that under yellow flags? We shall see. Heading into the Abbey corners. Across the line to complete lap 1 of 52, Hamilton, Räikkönen, Verstappen, Vettel, Hülkenberg, Ocon, Bottas, Perez, Van Dorn, Massa, and Carlos Sainz has made it into the barriers, it would appear. He's taken off the steering wheel and the cockpit surround, and I'm waiting to see if there's any damage on that Toro Rosso. I'm not entirely sure. I don't know if he made contact with a barrier or contact with another car. There is some dirt on his right front wheel. Let's see this. Daniel Kvyat gets offline over the curbs, and Daniel Kvyat hits Carlos Sainz. And we have a safety car deployment. The two Toro Rossos taking each other out. Daniel Kvyat, another accident for the Russian. Maldonado seal of approval much? There was contact between Sainz and another car. I could not quite identify it from that first replay. Kvyat tries to dive down the inside going into Beckett's, and he just loses it and completely takes out his teammate. That move was never going to work in a month of Sundays. Why did you attempt that? We are under the safety car here. Daniel Kvyat is the first car in line behind the safety car. I've got to wonder if they'll start throwing tomatoes at him. Kvyat unlaps himself. The incident is now officially under investigation. Cars 26, Kvyat, and car 55, Sainz, under investigation, causing a collision. That fault is squarely on the shoulders of Daniel Kvyat as far as I'm concerned. He tried to go down the inside going into Maggots, and then that turned into the outside line for Beckett's. There's no chance. You're doing at least 175 miles an hour into that section of the track. There is no prayer that you're going to be able to overtake somebody. There's one line through there, and you better be on it. Otherwise, that's what happens. You lose the back end, and you crash into your teammate. Another look at the start here. From the angle we saw it initially, it didn't look like Lewis Hamilton had the best start, and indeed, Räikkönen got off slightly better than Hamilton did. However, Hamilton had the racing line going into turn 1. Verstappen, though, he absolutely had a flyer off the line. He actually overtook Sebastian Vettel into the run up to turn 1. Vettel came back, and then Verstappen managed to go around the outside onto the infield straight. And he remains there in front of Sebastian Vettel. On board now with Vettel, a replay of the start. Vettel definitely bogged down off the start, and Verstappen got him basically straight off the line. Really nice start from Max Verstappen and a really bad one from Sebastian Vettel. Vettel had the inside line going into turn 3 and then through turn 4, just around the outside. True grit for Max Verstappen. Great job. Yeah, it was just the second phase of the start. That was the problem. The initial clutch bite was okay, and he got it rolling, but the final bit of the clutch release was just a little bit sluggish. Probably got some wheel spin from what I could see. On board with Ricciardo through turn 1. Oh, there was big contact there. No, that was not through turn 1. That was through Beckett's Chapel. You see the two Toro Rossos taking each other out. He had a bird's eye view to all of that. He got showered with debris. Working lap 4 of 51, still behind the safety car here. Lots of debris to clean up. The sun was out right at the moment of the start, but now the sun has disappeared and everything looks rather gloomy at Silverstone. We'll see if the sun comes back. Marshals out there, these wonderful British Grand Prix marshals, the vast majority of them are volunteers. They do not receive any money for this, but they do get the experience of truly being front and center in the British Grand Prix. Pascal Wehrlein, returning from the pit lane here. Was he also involved in that incident? Because I did see Carlos Sainz just clip another car in the rear as he was spinning around. Was it one of the Saubers? I could not make a positive ID on that third car involved. It could well have been Pascal Wehrlein. No, there's absolutely no chance Maldonado will come back to Formula One. He was only there because Hugo Chavez, the Generalissimo in Venezuela, was able to finance him, and he wanted Venezuela out there on the global stage of motorsport. Now that Chavez is dead and Venezuela effectively no longer exists, there's no chance that Maldonado will come back into Formula One. Another replay of the Toro Rossos taking each other out. Fiat gets over the curbs through Beckett's, and it just cuts all the downforce from underneath the car. It turns it into a surfboard. No surprise there, Danny. How do you say you're an idiot in Russian? Meanwhile, safety car coming in at the end of this lap. Lewis Hamilton backing the field up, as he is entitled to do. Kimi Räikkönen is behind him, though, not Sebastian Vettel, so we don't have to worry about a scandal during this period. And Lewis Hamilton has put the hammer down, and we are back underway here at Silverstone. We'll cross the line and we'll start working lap 5 of 51. Looks like everybody getting through Abbey okay. Hamilton across the line, followed by Räikkönen, Verstappen, Vettel, Hülkenberg, Ocon, Bottas, Perez, Van Dorn, and Massa, your top 10. Kimi Räikkönen staying within 7/10 of a second of Lewis Hamilton. Räikkönen fastest fall in Sector 1, 29.672. We'll watch those times very intently over these first couple of laps here. Hamilton responds to Raikkonen's fast sector 1 with the fast sector 2, 37.875. On board with Daniel Ricciardo in replay. What happens here? Going around the outside of Kevin Magnussen. He goes off over the curbing. Again, Daniel, no chance you were going to pull that one off. Was he balked by Magnussen? Could not quite see from that onboard shot. Working lap 6 of 51. Hamilton leads Raikkonen by 1.4 seconds. Hamilton is clear from DRS attack. Hamilton fastest lap 133.079. Fastest of all in sector 2. Daniel Ricciardo reporting back to the Red Bull pits that he's not entirely convinced his car is okay after that brief off. Valtteri Bottas on Esteban Ocon for P6. He gets the move done at Stowe Corner. Raikkonen already reporting that all is not well on board his SF70H. He's reporting an engine hesitation out of the exit of turn 4. We'll watch that. The gap has now come up to 2 seconds. Yes, I think over the course of this season so far, Alonso has lost about 380 grid slots. So that would mean for the next race, all things being fair, he has to start from Australia. Hey, if Alonso had to start from 2013, he'd have a Ferrari. That'll make it to the end of the race. On board with Valtteri Bottas, making easy work of Nico Hülkenberg into Stowe Corner. Bottas now running in P5. Yeah, that F138 was a pretty appalling car, but it was reliable. It wasn't quick, but it was reliable. It will make it to the end of a race. On board with Sebastian Vettel in P4 heading through Woodcut Corner. He doesn't seem to have anything for Max Verstappen at the moment. He's dropped back. The gap between those two guys is 0.6 of a second, so Vettel is within DRS range, but he's not attacking Verstappen at the moment. We'll see if that changes over the course of the next few laps. Currently working lap 8 of 51. Oh yes, 2000 through 2004, and then really 06 through 08. Absolutely loved those years. I only started watching F1 in 2005, but of course, like all fans of this sport, I've gone back and learned my history. Absolutely awesome era that was. Daniel Ricciardo going head-to-head with Fernando Alonso for P13. Does the Tag Heuer engine have any answer to the Honda? Drive-through penalty for Daniel Kvyat for rejoining the track unsafely. That's the biggest euphemism I've seen in a long time. He didn't rejoin the track. He came back on track completely out of control and plowed into his teammate per result. Yes, usually Ferrari in, let's see, 01, 02, and 05, they did not have their next year's car ready, so they used last year's car. In 2002, the F2001 actually managed to win the Australian Grand Prix, so that's a really cool distinction. The F2002 managed to do the same, win a couple of races in 2003, so I don't know too many stats on this, but I think it's really cool when you have a car that manages to take wins in consecutive years. Shows just how good the car is. The F2001 was a really great car. That's actually a car I would like to see in Assetto Corsa. I'd love to see somebody make an F2001 mod. It's one of my favorite F1 cars of all time. Ricciardo coming down the straight. The McLaren Honda is actually pulling away from Daniel Ricciardo down the straight. What is this sorcery? Honda have actually found some straight line speed? Cannot be. Absolutely cannot be. Yes, that F399 was actually the F300 for Assetto Corsa. It does not work anymore. It was made by Virtua, and it has not been updated in over a year now. It does not work anymore. Yes, the F2002 was all-conquering. It's the second most successful Grand Prix car of all time when you go out of the all-time wins list in terms of percentages. But that design became the modus operandi for Ferrari all the way from 2002 up to 2008. Every Ferrari F1 car since 2002 was built on the F2002. If you just look at them, you can see a very strong resemblance between every Ferrari F1 car between 02 and 08. Ricciardo has DRS on Alonso down Hanger Straight. Will he try something into Stowe? He does. Will he make it stick? He does. Fernando Alonso being overtaken on a straight. He's used to that. Will Alonso try to fight back into Abbey? No. I'm going to bet you that Alonso wishes the McLaren were scarlet because he'd be running in P2 right now. Lewis Hamilton, meanwhile, resets fastest sector 1 time, 29.640. Kimi Räikkönen 2.9 seconds behind. Lewis Hamilton resets fastest lap 132.895. Sebastian Vettel resets fastest sector time in Sector 1, 29.531. Getting on with the program there. He's 6/10 behind Max Verstappen. Is Vettel trying to mount a charge here? Hamilton fastest in Sector 2, 37.616. We'll see what Sebastian Vettel is able to do. Not as fast as Hamilton. He's about 4/10 slower through Sector 2. Alonso has this way of souring a relationship that I've never seen anybody else do, really since Alain Prost. Alonso, he comes into a team, there's a lot of fanfare, there's a lot of excitement, and then when things don't go perfectly, and things seldom ever go perfectly, ever, he burns all of his bridges, it seems, and he turns the whole team into a bit of a farce politically. So I'm not at all surprised that Ferrari wanted to let him go at the end of 2014, and from then on he backs himself into a corner of, okay, I can't stay where I am, so I need to go to the first team that offers me a seat. And well, in 2015 that was McLaren, and here we are. So a lot of it is Alonso's own making, for sure. However, I don't think we can excuse the utter ridiculousness that is the McLaren-Honda partnership. It's been 3 years and they're still at the back. Yes, big battle going on right now between Vettel and Verstappen. Verstappen actually left the circuit through Stowe Corner. Verstappen being very hard on Vettel, forcing him off the track. We're going to get some team radio from Sebastian Vettel, I am sure. I wonder if he'll make any ping-pong or torpedo references today. Vettel trying the outside through Stowe Corner around Max Verstappen. Verstappen holds the position, waiting for some arm waving to come out of the Ferrari cockpit. Come on, Seb. This is all you. Verstappen getting great drive out of the Abbey complex. That is something. Verstappen making fun of Sebastian Vettel now, saying, what are we doing? It's like bumper cars or something. Oh, you gotta love this guy. He's got quite the personality, and he's got the presence of mind to parody Sebastian Vettel as he's fighting with him at an average lap speed of over 140 miles an hour. Verstappen has pulled out quite a gap now over Sebastian Vettel. We saw Vettel get very squirrely into turn 3. Meanwhile, Daniel Ricciardo on Kevin Magnussen. No, that was on Grosjean. Great work there into Stowe Corner by Daniel Ricciardo. Sebastian Vettel through... Whoa, yes, there's the replay of that very squirrely moment through turn 3. And that would explain partially why Verstappen has now gapped Vettel to the tune of, let's see here, 1.1 seconds. I would agree that all of these problems would be good for Fernando Alonso, but how much longer does he have in Formula One? He's been here since 2001, and here it is in 2017. Are we going to see a 20-year career out of Fernando Alonso? I'm not so sure about that. The sky has gotten dark again. Again, I would characterize the weather conditions as being partly cloudy. Raikkonen radio. Ferrari telling Kimi to keep squeezing it. Obviously, they're talking about the life of these super soft tires. 18 laps on Raikkonen's tires, 18 laps on Hamilton's tires. Pit stops are going to be coming somewhat soon. The winner in all of this is going to be Valtteri Bottas because he is on that soft compound. He can go deeper into this first stint. He could, in theory, inherit the race lead on the pit stop rotation. Yes, Kimi also did start in 2001, and everybody's talking about when is Raikkonen going to retire, so I don't know. If Alonso can get a competitive ride, he definitely will stay. However, I think his prospects of that are pretty slim. Mercedes don't want him. There are no openings at Mercedes at the moment. Ferrari don't really have any interest in him either, so where does that leave Alonso? Renault? Renault's not going to be competitive next year. And he's not going to go down the field even further than that. There's no chance in the world that he would go to Sauber or anywhere like that. So unless he wants to do something a little crazy and go to Haas, because he has talked about how much he likes the atmosphere in the United States, Haas being an American team, I wonder if he had the opportunity, would he go to Haas, not to be competitive, but basically to get himself acclimated to the idea of working in the United States, getting himself ready for an IndyCar drive maybe in 2019. Yes, Leclerc has absolutely been setting the world alight in Formula 2. Great drives from him at Silverstone this weekend in the F2 races. If you ask him, he'll say he'll be at Ferrari next year. I don't think that's quite likely. I think it's much more likely that he would go to Ferrari's effective B team, which is Haas, but we'll see what happens at Ferrari. We'll see if Raikkonen actually leaves. He may not at this point. Pit stops underway, seeing Sebastian Vettel pulling into the pits here. We will see what the German does. He is on the super soft compound at the moment. Meanwhile, Lewis Hamilton resets fastest lap. Definitely in reaction to Sebastian Vettel. Sebastian Vettel goes on to the hard compound tires. Not the hards, the soft compound tires, the harder compound. Kimi Räikkönen reports rain at Luffield Corner, and on board with Daniel Ricciardo through Stowe, there are some drops on his camera lens. We'll see if this weather holds. Meanwhile, that Mick Schumacher point, I don't know when we're going to see Mick Schumacher have a foray into Formula One. At some point, he will do, at very least, a test with a Formula One team. And I've got to believe it would be with Ferrari or Haas, given his family connections there. But Mick is quick. That's for sure. Mick is quick. It's not hype. It's not because his father is named Michael. It's on his merit. Mick is fast. Is he fast enough for Formula One? Time will tell. Remember, he is still very young. Verstappen in the pits, going on to the soft compound now. Is it raining, however? We are getting reports of rain. We'll see what this weather does. These are the real nail-biting moments in a Grand Prix, when there's rain coming down at a couple of corners, but it's very light and you're not quite sure what's going to happen. Pit stops are underway. People are starting to make their mandatory pit stop to go onto the other compound. Bottas radio. Mercedes telling Bottas, get on with the program. This is your chance. You could inherit the lead here on the pit stop rotation, and Bottas can go deep into this first stint. Yes, Mick did race under a fake name because he just didn't want the attention, and I can't blame him, because the media crush when your father's the most successful F1 driver of all time would be enormous, and that sort of pressure is not something that anybody deserves, particularly at his age. So Mick actually raced under a false name at the early stages of his career just to do his own thing. Skies continue to get darker here at Silverstone. Now, if it does start to rain, and it rains lightly for a few laps, these super soft tires is an advantage to the guys on the super soft, because they'll keep their temperature and they'll be able to cope with a little film of water on the track surface. But once it starts to surpass just the slightest of water films, these tires will be like driving on ice. So if it does rain, these guys are going to hope that it rains only the slightest amount. Otherwise, they're going to have to come back into the pits, and their pit strategy is going to be completely thrown out the window. And then all hell breaks loose. Working lap 21 of 51. Hamilton still leads Kimi Räikkönen by the interval of 8.3 seconds. Those two men have yet to stop. Valtteri Bottas now in P3 through the pit stop rotation. Bottas can go deeper into this first stint. Sebastian Vettel resets fastest lap 132.225. Vettel currently in P4. Stoffel Van Dorn having a pretty solid day, running P8 right now in the recalcitrant McLaren Honda. And so far, Fernando Alonso still running as well, albeit in P18 and the last car on track. The wind has really picked up as well here at Silverstone. Seeing some flags in the background, they are being blown stiff, perpendicular. I wonder, is weather moving in? And if it is, it will be moving in very quickly. I'm not trying to hype this up. I legitimately think rain could be on the way here. Seeing a lot of diffuse light now coming through the clouds. The stark shadows have all gone. It is getting dark at Silverstone. Yes, I know. Weather in England never happens. It never rains in England. Lance Stroll pits and out, confirming his tire compounds. Stroll onto the Super Softs. Valtteri Bottas, fastest lap, 132.166. That's the guy to watch right now, as Hamilton and Raikkonen still consider whether or not to pit. Is it possible that Hamilton is just trying to string out this first stint a little longer to see if it is in fact going to rain? We'll find out, but Hamilton is going to have to do something very soon. Perez into the pits. Grosjean as well. Perez out on the soft compound. Romain Grosjean still shown in pit here. And Grosjean now leaving the pit lane onto the soft compound as well. Kimi Raikkonen pits from P2. Bottas will inherit that position as well. Mercedes now running 1 and 2. Raikkonen goes on to the hard compound, the harder compound, the soft. Yes, Formula E, and I want to make a point about Formula E. Yesterday afternoon, my time, was the race in Brooklyn, New York, and Formula E locked out the broadcast of the race in the United States. So I was unable to watch the Formula E race in New York, even though I live about 30 miles in a straight line from New York City. Unbelievable. Who is in charge of the broadcasting at Formula E? Who is in charge of public relations? Because I couldn't see a race that was happening figuratively in my backyard. Hamilton has been called into the pits. Mercedes with the soft tires on hand. Hamilton coming into the pits on the limiter line. Really quick stop for Mercedes. 2.3 seconds is the stop time. Hamilton on those soft tires, we confirm that. Hamilton rejoins just ahead of Valtteri Bottas. The gap is 0.4 of a second. And now the sun has come back out at Silverstone, seeing bright sunshine once again. This British summer weather is rather inconsistent, I must say. And as I speak, the sun sort of fades again. This is crazy, but there is a lot of wind out there. Mercedes telling Hamilton that if he cannot pull away from Valtteri to let him pass, Hamilton responds by saying, "I'll pull him along with me." The gap is now 2.1 seconds. I chose the Thrustmaster wheel over the Fanatic wheel, mostly because of price, but also because there are more rim options for the Thrustmaster wheel. Rim options, at least, that are more accessible for me from a price point. Yes, Kimi has set the fastest lap, 1:31.903. However, Hamilton's fastest in Sector 1 on this lap. Hamilton, fastest lap, 1:31.529. Yes, the unfortunate reality of American television, inexorable ads. Yes, I have tried version 2.1 of ASR's Ferrari 643. Really loving it, not loving the sound so much though. The cockpit sounds are alright, but those external sounds, the upshifts in particular, there's just a big abrupt bang on every upshift, which would be good, but they've overdone it tremendously. It drowns out the sound of the engine on the upshift. That gap is now 2.7 seconds between Lewis Hamilton and Valtteri Bottas at the sharp end of the field. Kimi Räikkönen is 9.9 seconds behind Bottas in P3. Vettel a further 4.6 seconds behind Kimi Räikkönen. Yes, force feedback on this Thrustmaster wheel, it's really good. It's really, really good. I also like how the force feedback transmits differently through the different rims that you use. For example, the Ferrari F1 rim feels very different from a force feedback standpoint than one of the circular rims. It's really cool. Yes, that is the unfortunate reality of iRacing. Right now it is very oval-centric, and the release of the dirt tracks only further cemented that. Not my cup of tea either. Meanwhile, on board with Lewis Hamilton in P1, he just looks really settled into this. Just being very gentle with the car. No abrupt inputs here whatsoever. Just hitting his marks, having a Sunday drive by the looks of it. Working lap 31 of 51. Valtteri Bottas in P2. Still now on that set of tires that he started with. 34 laps on those tires. Here's Felipe Massa running in P11, up 3 spots from where he started, having a quiet day in the Williams. I have yet to play AMS. I've seen a lot of stuff about it. Some of it looks actually rather impressive, but I don't know what's turned me off from it. I think it looks a little bit too much like R Factor for me. But I don't know. I never played it, so I don't know anything about the physics or anything like that. But just visually, from videos I've seen, it looks rather similar to R Factor 1 in some regards. Bottas jumps into the pit lane, finally, on lap 33. Raikkonen re-inherits P2. Vettel goes up to P3 from Bottas' stop. Bottas is now out. I have to assume he'll now be on the super soft tires, which should be good to the end. Bottas on the super softs. Ricciardo diving into the pits as well, his first stop. Ricciardo rejoins P10 on the soft compound. Fernando Alonso radio saying no power. Alonso is now in the pit lane. Has the Mick Honda blown up again? Alonso currently shown in the pit lane, waiting to see any pictures of what's going on at the Mick Honda camp. I have to believe that is a terminal situation for the MCL32 yet again. Valtteri Bottas now setting the world on fire. He's just put in the fastest Sector 1 and 2 times. We'll see this lap here, his first hot lap. And there is Fernando Alonso out of the car, walking to the back of the garage, not wanting to talk to anybody, if you could hardly blame him for that. Waiting for that lap time from Valtteri Bottas because it is definitely quick. And it is fastest lap of the race, 131.122 for Bottas in P4. Danny Ricciardo now up to P8 over Esteban Ocon. Just saw Ocon's car go into regen there at the end of the straight. I've got to say he probably just lost the last bit of electric charge in that ERS system, and that enabled Danny Ricciardo to get by. Last car out there still running on the start set of tires, Kevin Magnussen, currently running in P7. He's got 34 laps on his tires. Working lap 37 of 51, Lewis Hamilton still leads over Kimi Räikkönen to the tune of 11.7 seconds. Sebastian Vettel in P3, 4.5 seconds behind his teammate. Valtteri Bottas in P4, 3 seconds back from Sebastian Vettel. Max Verstappen still running P5. Lewis Hamilton reporting that his tires are blistered. He is still maintaining a 12-second gap to Kimi Räikkönen. Slow motion replay of Hamilton here through the Abbey chicane. The tires actually look pretty good from what I can tell. On the 2005 United States Grand Prix, I have no idea what you're talking about there. That was a brilliant race. No complaints whatsoever. A look in the Cars 3 garage setup here at Silverstone. Not entirely sure what the whole point of that is, but those guys are all being paid a salary to sit there and look interested in the race. They showed a close-up of one of their laptop computers in the Cars 3 garage, and it was showing telemetry data from Hockenheim. You could have at least set it up so that you could see a trace of Silverstone? Really, guys? Yes, the only podium finish for Thiago Monteiro in the Jordan at the 2005 United States Grand Prix. Yes, I do have to agree, this does look to be a done deal at this point for Lewis Hamilton. Unless we get some rain, the chances of that are getting slimmer and slimmer as the laps wind down here. 11 laps to go. Hamilton and Raikkonen essentially setting identical lap times. 132.214 for Hamilton, 132.229 for Raikkonen, P1 and 2. The gap is 13.2 seconds. Yes, in Hungary, the shorter wheelbase will definitely be an advantage. I mean, we saw Ferrari on pole in Monaco. That's the ultimate compact circuit, so we'll see what happens in Hungary. In championship predictions, I don't even want to try to hazard a guess at the moment because it's that close between Mercedes and Ferrari so far this season, which I think is really tremendous. That is the fight that we've been wanting to see for years. Hamilton against Vettel, Ferrari against Mercedes, Ferrari finally back at the sharp end of the field. This is going to go down to the wire, that's for sure. Yes, the 1997 Hungarian Grand Prix with Damon Hill in that Arrows. He led the race for a substantial duration, and then a throttle pickup problem hampered him right at the end. But yeah, Arrows should have won that race. Bottas fighting with Sebastian Vettel. Vettel not giving him any quarter through Stowe Corner. Bottas leaves the track. Vettel, huge lockup into Abbey. However, he recovers and maintains his position. This is going to be one hell of a fight to the end of the race now. Game on. Bottas with DRS down the infield straight. Coming into Woodcote now. Vettel runs very wide through Woodcote. Bottas has a look up the inside. Vettel gets better traction on the exit. Now coming down the old start-finish straight. Heading toward Copse Corner. Bottas now with some distance between he and Vettel. Through Copse. Heading into Maggots and Beckett's now. Coming down Hanger straight. Bottas is close now onto the gearbox of Vettel. DRS open for Bottas. What will Vettel do? Bottas being forced to the outside around Stowe, and easy move on Sebastian Vettel for Valtteri Bottas. Mercedes telling Bottas, great job, and Bottas replies, minimal talking. It is total focus now in that Mercedes cockpit. Lewis Hamilton now coming up to lap Felipe Massa in P10. Vettel radio to Ferrari saying he's got no more fronts. They've been blistering for 20 laps. Felipe Massa lets Hamilton through. Red Bull telling Max Verstappen that Vettel is struggling with his front tires, but the gap between those two guys is, at this point, 8 seconds. I don't think that's going to be recoverable. And there was contact between Romain Grosjean and Marcus Ericsson, I believe that was, in one of the Saubers. So stupid, unbelievable is the word from Romain Grosjean. Bottas fastest lap, 131.007. That's a full 0.6 faster. No, that's over a second faster than Lewis Hamilton right now. Lewis Hamilton lapping Esteban Ocon into Stowe corner. No problem there. Ocon lets him through. New lap record here. Valtteri Bottas, 131.007. That's official. Kimi Räikkönen, very upset with the Ferrari crew. They're putting the wrong interval up on the pit board, apparently. He's saying that he's 1.5 seconds in front of Valtteri Bottas. He's actually about 6 seconds in front of Valtteri Bottas. Bottas resets fastest lap, 130.905. He is going quick here. He's the fastest car on the track by about 1.5 seconds. Yes, I agree. Bottas is too good to be a number 2 driver. He needs to be leading someplace. That opens the door for Lewis Hamilton. If he wants to go to Ferrari, he has made some comments recently saying that he would love to end his career at Ferrari. I think every Formula 1 driver who ever has a sniff of an opportunity to go to Ferrari will say that. Even Giancarlo Fisichella, all through his career, even though Fisichella was an inconsistent driver at best, he always said that if he ever had the opportunity to drive for Ferrari, he would take it, and in 2009 that opportunity presented itself, and he took it. Lewis Hamilton responds, fastest lap 130.621. Meanwhile, Renault telling Nico Hülkenberg that they have a problem on board that car. Can he hold on to that 6th place? Daniel Ricciardo is coming fast and fierce. Ferrariman601 thank you very much for your kind words on the F2004 review. VRC are releasing their Renault R25, I'm led to believe, at some point today, so that thing is also going to be coming at you. Stoffel Van Dorn getting around Kimi Räikkönen. Kimi Räikkönen going very slowly here, I believe. Bottas gets around Kimi Räikkönen for P2. Kimi Räikkönen is in trouble. Kimi Räikkönen's in a lot of trouble. The left front tire's delaminating. It's still inflated, but the tread is coming off of Räikkönen's left front tire. This is a disaster for Kimi Räikkönen. He was on for some great points. He's going to have to go to the pits now, and he's probably going to lose all of those points. I wonder if he'll even just retire from the race at this point. That's a disaster for Kimi Räikkönen. He was on for a definite podium. Max Verstappen in the pit lane. What happened? What has happened here? This is a tire stop. Down to Ricciardo now, right on the gearbox of Nico Hülkenberg. Kimi Räikkönen gets back out on track. He rejoins in 4th. Sebastian Vettel going slow. A left front tire down on Sebastian Vettel's car. Ferrari have lost left front tires on both cars. This is extraordinary. Lap 50 of 51. Sebastian Vettel dragging the car along the ground here. Left front tire down. Sebastian Vettel got onto the brakes down the infield straight, and the left front tire just completely deflated. What happened? What is going on with Ferrari? It's a common failure on both cars. Is it brake temperatures? Is it incursion of bodywork onto the tire someplace? What is going on here? This is absolutely extraordinary. Vettel limping down Hangar Straight. We're now working on the final lap. Lewis Hamilton has crossed the line. Vettel be lucky to make it back to the pits here. Now the tire's completely delaminating. It's going to rip the front wing to pieces at this point. Unbelievable. Kimi Räikkönen now back up onto the podium in P3 thanks to his teammates' problems. That's absolutely amazing. Vettel has fallen to P7th. Lewis Hamilton coming through Stowe Corner for the final time, however. Vettel still in the pit lane. Lewis Hamilton through Abbey, coming down to the start-finish straight. The checkered flag is raised. Lewis Hamilton wins the 2017 British Grand Prix. He is followed home in P2 by Valtteri Bottas, an improbable 1-2 finish for Mercedes. As they run right now, Sebastian Vettel leads the Drivers' Championship by 1 point. Kimi Räikkönen recovers to finish third after all. Sebastian Vettel still running somewhat slowly here in P7. We'll see if he remains there. Yes, what happened with left front tires here at the end of the race? We saw it on both Ferraris, and we saw a problem for Max Verstappen as well. Was there debris on the circuit? Did they run over a curb in a peculiar way? We'll have to see some replays, and certainly in the fallout from this race, we're going to have to get an explanation of this, but that was bizarre. Last time I saw something like that happen was 2013, again at Silverstone. Lewis Hamilton taking a very slow cool-down lap, running on the runoff sections here to get a little bit closer to the grandstands, and of course to pick up some marbles in the car for the weigh-in after the race. Hamilton definitely enjoying this home victory. Well, extraordinary scenes in the closing laps of the British Grand Prix. However, the final order is as follows. Taking the victory, car number 44, Lewis Hamilton. P2, Valtteri Bottas. A 1-2 finish for Mercedes, as improbable as it seemed from the outset. P3 for Kimi Räikkönen, recovering from a left front delamination. P4 for Max Verstappen, also with left front problems. P5 for Daniel Ricciardo in the first Red Bull. P6, Nico Hülkenberg in the Renault. P7, Sebastian Vettel, a completely deflated left front tire for him. P8, Esteban Ocon. P9, Sergio Perez. P10, Felipe Massa, the last point scorer. P11 for Stoffel Van Dorn, one of the McLarens made it home. P12 for Kevin Magnussen. P13, Romain Grosjean in the first Haas. P14, Marcus Ericsson in the Sauber. P15, Daniel Kvyat in the Toro Rosso, recovering from a first lap crash with his teammate. P16, Lance Stroll in the second Williams. And P17, last car classified, Pascal Wehrlein. Not classified are Fernando Alonso, Carlos Sainz, and Jolyon Palmer. Palmer blowing up on the formation lap, and Alonso blowing up just a few laps ago. 32 laps completed for Fernando Alonso. Will we look back on this race as the one that changed the complexion of the World Championship? There is the possibility of that. It didn't look like much was going to happen in the driver's standings up until lap 49, but lap 50, all hell broke loose there with the tires. Again, I will be very interested to see what happens with those left front tires for Ferrari. It's a common failure on both cars. Is it a car fault, or was there debris on the circuit? Did they run over a curb in a strange way? Max Verstappen had the same problem, so it's not localized to Ferrari. It makes me believe something happened with the track or with the curbing. Or is it a Pirelli problem? We shall see. Lewis Hamilton getting out of the car in Parc Fermé. He looks reasonably jubilant, as you might expect. He's just won his home Grand Prix for the 5th time. He equals Jim Clark and Alain Prost for British Grand Prix victories. SimRacing604, thank you very much for being here. Lewis Hamilton asking Kimi Räikkönen about what happened on the last couple of laps. Räikkönen being stereotypically mum on the whole thing. In the Constructors' Championship, Mercedes have 330 points now, Ferrari 275. That was a big hit for Ferrari today. Podium time here at Silverstone, awaiting the drivers to come out onto the podium. Kimi Räikkönen mounts the podium in P3. Valtteri Bottas now walking out. Great to see Jackie Stewart out there on the podium as well. Wonder who'll be conducting the interviews. And Lewis Hamilton, P1, looking very exuberant up there on the top step. Stand by for the British and German national anthems. Great performances, honestly, by all three drivers up there. Driver of the day should be Valtteri Bottas. I don't know if he has won it, but he certainly deserves to if he has not. Lewis Hamilton accepting the winner's trophy here for the 5th time at Silverstone. That is a feat, I must say. Kimi, yes, I feel good that he made the podium, but it should have been 2nd place, honestly. Nothing to take away from Valtteri Bottas, but Kimi had 2nd place. A tire let him down. Kimi Räikkönen, he always looks very disappointed when he gets these 3rd place trophies because they are so small in comparison to the winner's trophy. And in typical actually in typical Finnish fashion, Bottas and Räikkönen both go straight for a drink of champagne rather than spraying it straight away. Waiting to see who's going to conduct the interviews. Have to believe it's going to be a British racing driver. And it's actually Owen Wilson doing the interviews today. All right, concessions to Hollywood. Jenson Button also up there on the podium doing interviews. Okay, there's a British racing driver. Yes, I do have to wonder why the FIA have pressed this release, this delay on the release of the of any sort of new engine specification until 2021. It would be so easy to put V8s in these cars again. The teams have all developed them. They're sitting there someplace in a warehouse. Just put them in the cars and they would work just fine. And they'd probably fit pretty well too. The packaging for a V8 can't be all that different, especially when you consider all of the ancillary components currently in the cars for the hybrid systems and the turbocharger. So I don't think it would be that difficult for the teams just to shoehorn V8s into these cars and let them go. Sure, we'd be down a little bit on power, but the aero, that aero with a V8 would be really cool. Also, yes, if you brought back refueling, you could make the cars a bit smaller, a bit slimmer. That would help aero efficiency a lot. Jenson Button closing out the podium interviews there. 2 weeks until the Hungarian Grand Prix. Will we see Carlos Sainz in a Renault at that race? Maybe. Will we see Ferraris being a little bit more dominant there due to their shorter wheelbase relative to the Mercedes? Maybe. It's going to be a very, very cool one. However, the Hungaroring tends to be one of my favorite circuits. I love watching the cars operate around there, and it does tend to give us an interesting race. We saw Daniel Ricciardo winning there in 2015 against all odds. That was pretty cool. Also, Jenson Button taking his first win there in 2006. Fernando Alonso taking his first win there in 2003. So the Hungaroring tends to bring some interesting results on occasion. And of course, if it rains, it's all the better. Although it tends not to rain on the Hungarian Grand Prix. I believe the race went for its first 25 or so years of existence without a single rain shower. Yes, that was a 2014 win for Daniel Ricciardo at the Hungaroring. In terms of the overall complexion of this race, I've got to say, a bit boring for most of the way. Incident on lap 1 bringing out the safety car, but then after that, well, not so much until the very end when we had 3 cars lose left front tires. Both of the Ferraris and the Red Bull of Max Verstappen, they pitted him before it turned into a more serious situation. However, Ferrari losing big points with Sebastian Vettel, Kimi Räikkönen recovering to finish P3 very luckily. We did not get any rain. It looked for a time there that rain might actually start. We did get a few drops of rain at Stowe Corner, but it never really materialized, which honestly I think would have been good for this race. We needed a little bit more excitement out there today. But it's a win for Lewis Hamilton, his 5th career British Grand Prix victory, and it's a 2nd place for Valtteri Bottas, another 1-2 finish this year for Mercedes. Yes, when we were looking at the cars in launch spec, it was actually really difficult to see who was going to have the upper hand, Mercedes or Ferrari. I was very impressed by that Mercedes in launch spec, and pretty much equally impressed by the Ferrari, although I did think the Ferrari would be somewhat behind the Mercedes. The first race of the season in Australia, of course, Sebastian Vettel took a convincing win for the Scuderia. I don't know, it's just been this cat and mouse game back and forth between Ferrari and Mercedes all year long. It's really difficult to see who truly has the upper hand. Mercedes definitely made a big step beginning in Azerbaijan, and that's continuing to play dividends for them here in Silverstone. Of course, they also won in Austria last weekend. So we'll see if we're going to see a little bit of a closer fight, or if Mercedes could start to pull away. They made a big step toward that today, obviously, with that 1-2 finish. Somewhat fortuitous, though, with the problems encountered by Kimi Räikkönen. I do have to say, guys, it has been fun once again. I wish that we had a bit more of an exciting race. I'm hopeful that the Hungaroring will give us a little bit more excitement. But that is 2 weeks away. For now, though, thank you all for being here today. It has been fun. I'm going to go test the Renault R25 by VRC. Until next time, thank you all very, very much for being here. I really appreciate all of your comments here during the live chat. It's really, really cool to interact with all of you. Until next time, though, Ferrariman601 signing off.